3, 2, 1.
Welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com. Welcome back to GrokTALK. Just to reiterate from earlier when Jane was here, New Hampshire Right to Life 2015 Benefit Banquet, Thursday, October 8th, 2015, Executive Court Banquet Facility, 1199 South Mammoth Road in Manchester. The reception's at 5:30. Begins at 5:30. Dinner is 6:45 to 9:15. Advanced reservations are preferred. 40 Days for Life started September 23rd, goes until November 1st. You can visit, let me see what we got here. Vigil locations, vigil hours, 40 Days for Life. Vigil location, I didn't read this before I went on the air. Public right-of-way outside of Planned Parenthood, 24 Pennacook Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. Vigil hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. Locally, you can contact 978-226-3240 or email 40daysforlifemanchester@gmail.com. All right. Let me just turn on some microphones now that I'm done talking.
With a Massachusetts phone number, no less. But it's nice to have some folks from Massachusetts standing with us on liberty and respect for the life of the baby.
Okay, so we can talk about anything. Not that we haven't.
Right, we sure have.
Hey, Jody, for people who don't trust sending money over the internet, is there an address they could send a check or just put some cash in an envelope and send it to you guys?
Sure.
Where would they send it to?
I mean, I guess they could send it to me. Yeah, I think that would be reasonable, right? So Jody Underwood.
I already know one guy who just wants to give you cash.
Sure. So Jody Underwood, that's Jody. And the address is 92 Forehand Road, Forehand, in Croydon, New Hampshire, 03773.
Is that the?
That's my home address, but I am the
chair.
I am the school board chair.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think the town hall wants to get involved in this.
That's probably true.
So you could send it to the SAU.
You could get a.
They would just.
You
then
could
they'd
send
have
them a
money.
receipt.
You could send it to the SAU. Send it to Jody Underwood, Chair, Croydon School Board, care of SAU 43. I don't know their address offhand, in Newport, New Hampshire. Also 03773.
It would probably get there.
And it
with
would,
that
and they would
address.
give it to me. Yeah, it would get there. Yeah, just like that, it would get there.
There are one of the things I learned working for UPS in southern New Hampshire, and it was that when you're delivering, there are certain towns where you have to go and make sure it's at the door behind a bush or a chair or something, and there's other towns where you could just throw it into the town square and it would get delivered that day.
Right.
Just there were certain towns where you knew it was always safe and everybody was and maybe Croydon's a place like that, I don't know. But it's interesting, the diversity, because, you're down here, this is Concord, which is not southern Nashua, it really is. But when you get farther south of Manchester and down by closer to Nashua, you have towns that are, huge, 25,000 people in a town, or even more, like a city like Nashua. But then you drive 15 minutes and there's this tiny town with 300 people in it, and it's just so quaint, and everybody's like, because it's got the church with the white steeple and the little local store and everything else, and that's New Hampshire. And then you drive a little bit farther and you're in the middle of nowhere. It's just nothing. Trees. Yeah. So there's a lot of different character, but one of the things we said earlier, you get down to the town level of government, people are still people.
Right, and they are. And, you asked what our next steps are, and one of our next steps is really to help the town understand what's going on. So we're sending the AG's letter and our response to it with a, small cover letter. Oh, wow. Realizing I should change that cover letter before it goes out and tell them about you caring that we're actually raising money.
Absolutely.
Because this is news. Damn, Ian's making a note for me. Thank you.
Good hubby.
Yep. Now he has to remember to tell me later. One thing at a time.
The writing I've got is finding the notes later.
You should have brought the dogs, and then they could have reminded you to remind her.
They tuck it into the collar.
Ian usually writes it on his hand or his arm. Yeah.
I started I just got a smartphone this year, and I started using the little note thing in there because I usually have the phone with me in case somebody's trying to get a hold of me. and then I'll be like, what the hell did I have to get at the store? Oh, I put it in the phone. Okay, I gotta go look. If I don't put it in the phone, I don't remember. It's not there.
Yeah, I do voice memos a lot,
Yeah.
like if I'm driving. I
use a lot of these too.
Yeah.
I write a little note, stick it in my wallet, and then when I go to open up my wallet to
Yeah.
make sure I have my credit cards or my money, I see the note and I go, oh, what the hell's that?
Hey, would you get arrested? You'd get arrested if you were putting the note into your smartphone. But would you
Right.
get arrested if you were writing it on a sticky?
No, I could
You have
actually
to have a hands-free sticky.
I could be driving like this, right on the roof of the car. But if I just touched my phone, I could get a $100 fine or whatever.
Is the hands-free, does it say hands-free electronic device?
Yeah.
Electronic. So
Okay.
same thing for
So you can-
GPSs. If you
you
were
can
in a convoy with walkie-talkies,
Smoke and talk and eat.
But I could
and
have
put
my
on
little
your makeup
moleskin
and-
notebook
Uh-huh.
and
Right.
Yeah.
to be writing.
you can
Wow.
read. You can read the paper. You can
And you
put
can
on
do that. And
mascara.
if by chance that caused an accident, there is a law for that, the distracted driving law, which we
Okay.
already had, which apparently doesn't apply to phones because we had to have 2 more laws
That's
for
right.
that.
Yeah.
Electronic objects.
Electronic objects.
Devices.
So just don't make sure you're not using like an electronic touchpad that you can write on, because that would qualify it.
Well, and it's a funny thing, right? They need an extra law. They need another law. This is something Jody and I were talking about actually the other day. Just this idea that you get to the point where nothing is based on first principles anymore. So you don't even know what the law says, and you can't reason it out. You can't do something like you just did and say, well, distracted driving is already illegal. That would be distracted driving. We're covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody actually knows because nobody reads that law. They just think, oh, well, here's a bad thing. We'd better have a law for it, right? And so the laws just pile up and pile up.
And it
without
didn't make any sense that when they came up with the texting law, we said, but we have a distracted driving law, and they passed it anyway. And then they said, well, we need a hands-free electronic test. And I was like, well, you have a texting and a distracted driving law. You don't need... What's
Right.
next?
Right,
Let's-
right.
My car is full of electronics.
Well, we know
I
exactly.
can't touch I can't drive anymore. That's the whole thing. They want you to take the train.
Well, the problem. Well, the problem is they didn't disallow playing with your radio, or
Right.
your CD,
Right.
or the MP3. You can certainly adjust the electronic controls for the temperature in the car.
Right.
You can turn on the electronic wipers, or the defroster.
Your whole
You can
desk.
turn around and do this to your kids.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So anyway, it's stupid. We all know it's dumb, and there it is, and that's the problem. The problem isn't the law. The problem is the process that leads to stuff just like that. And then, like in your case, the law is pretty clear, but apparently it's too clear. They got to screw it
It's
up.
not the right law that
Well,
they
that's
want.
true.
Nobody's
That's true.
reading. You know, look, we've excuse me.
That's okay. It happens to me all the time.
Take some water.
You can take a break.
We're
good.
fine.
So we've been in the. Oh, he
I turned
turned me
it down
off.
so you
Yeah,
clear
there
your
we go.
throat.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we've been in the newspaper multiple times over the last year since this whole thing started, since we started getting letters. And we haven't really had any extra people come to school board meetings. But then I was on WMUR News,
Oh boy.
and suddenly people
So
are
they
aware.
watch the news,
They
you know
watch
that.
TV. Yeah, exactly. So now we know that that's how we can reach our town, because we don't have any easy way of doing that. But I was just startled, right? So when I say the town suddenly became aware, 6 people came to our last school board
That's
meeting.
pretty big.
Do you have cable in
We
Croydon?
don't. No.
Dish? Is
Well,
is there local programming on Dish?
They have
We don't have local
smoke signals that they'd use.
Right.
There's local programming in Newport. Somebody
In
was telling me
Newport
about
there
that.
is,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yeah.
I don't know if anybody.
but we don't have
watches
cable, and it's
Croydon.
cable in Newport. I mean, we just got high-speed internet, but a few years ago, like 3 years ago, and not everybody has it yet.
To step up from carrier pigeons, right?
That's right.
Or you could just summarize your arguments in like Burma Shave style signs along Route 10. People are driving through, you
You know,
Some
that's
nice-
not a bad idea.
Well, let me ask you this: do you live stream the school board meetings?
No, we don't.
You should.
Where to?
Exactly.
Nobody can see them.
Well,
Right, and there's
they
no
just said they've
cell
got-
service at where
There's no
the
cell
meetings
service.
take
But-
place.
but
It's a-
you
You can
just-
record them and
We
put
get
them on
internet.
YouTube, right?
We can get to
Sure.
internet down
yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, but you said that you now in Croydon have fast internet.
Well, that's just to people's homes, but there's no site, right? There's no literally.
Well,
All you
wherever
have to
you
do
have
is
your
just-
school,
Yeah, just record them
do what we do.
and then put them on YouTube.
That's all.
We could do that.
Hey,
just a
we
regular
live
video.
streamed Vermin Fest. You know?
We did
We
get Bill
could do the
McGonigal on
same
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Vermin Fest. Is this who I
Vermin
think it is?
Supreme.
Vermin Supreme, yeah.
We
Yeah,
hosted
it's a
it
3-day party fundraiser
at Bardo Farm
event.
2 weeks ago.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
It was
It was
something.
fun, and it was live streamed.
3 days of vermin.
Yeah, it was 2, yeah, whatever. But
Is that too many?
it was fun.
I'm sure you had fun. I'm
I
just,
was a
I'm
stick.
just trying to measure out how many days of a guy with a boot on his head. no matter what he says.
He didn't always wear his boot.
That's good.
And it wasn't just him. There was
wasn't.
music.
Yeah.
There was a big slip and slide. There was, you know,
It was the Rainbow Group.
Yeah,
That was
the Rainbow
those are
Gathering.
his follower. The Rainbow Gathering. Yeah.
so
Cool.
food,
Bunch of
camping,
hippies in the
you know.
woods.
Hippies in the woods are good.
Yeah.
That's a good place for
Yeah.
hippies.
Yeah.
And it forced us to clean up that area of our
Yeah,
property
yeah.
and get it into shape.
Well, that's
for
always
people
good
to camp.
too.
So
Good to have
because
deadlines.
Yeah.
If I ever had to clean out behind my shed, I don't know what I'd do. You know, I'd just be like, I better call, get junk or something. You know, come take all the stuff out
Right.
because I got lawnmowers back there and it's pretty scary. But yeah, sometimes you need a motivation. Like we used to every year, my daughter's birthday party would be the one party where we had a lot of people come over and moms would come and my wife would be like, fix this in the yard, make sure these trees are gone, da da da. You know, we'd have a list. And so I wouldn't do a lot of stuff earlier in the summer because I knew I'd have to do it anyway later. So I just wait,
Yeah.
get it all done at once.
Good
you know?
approach.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Procrastination.
Yeah.
Yeehaw.
well, I was blogging or something. I don't know.
Right,
Maybe doing
exactly.
this. Who's this? So.
Just tell them the Croydon School Board is hiding behind your shed. And they'll clear it out, take everything, and it'll get top priority too.
That would too.
It'll be done by tomorrow.
Yeah. Get the AG's office down there. I could ask them some questions while they're there.
Really?
Scare 'em
They
off.
would turn over every single rock to find you. Clear it out. Pull up the dump truck, Harry.
So what you were talking about before reminded me, you had come up with something that you wanted to talk about where there was already a law written. But what was that?
Oh yeah, so I was talking to Frank Edelblut, who's either running or thinking about running or planning to run for governor, and you know, so we were talking more
You
about
guys know him, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I talked to him last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're talking about, you know, sort of laws that deal with process instead of going after particular issues like drugs or schools or whatever. And we were talking, I was like, wouldn't it be an interesting idea if, you know, if you could, as governor, lead the passage of a law that essentially said, since all legislative power is vested in the legislature, if somebody who's not in the legislature says something, you don't have to pay attention to it, right? And it would just take care of a lot of things at once. State Liquor Commission. Are you in the legislature? No, we don't care. You know, the school, the Department of Education, are you in the legislature? No, we don't care.
DES.
We don't care, right? Because you're not the legislature and you didn't actually pass a law, which would be sort of interesting. And if you really take it to the meaning of the words, you wouldn't have to pay attention to judges either because they're not in the legislature. So anyways, we were chatting about that and how much fun that would be.
They are at least paid to interpret the law as opposed to...
They're not actually paid to interpret the law.
No,
they're
they're not.
paid to enforce judicial power, which is to say this
Decide.
guy is inside or outside the law, not to interpret the law.
Okay.
The Supreme Court, maybe,
Right.
and that's
No,
just
not
the
even the Supreme-
Constitution.
yeah,
And
not
all,
even
all the Supreme Court can say is that
Probably
in
the
our
wrong-
opinion,
the wrong word.
this law violates the Constitution.
Right.
The legislature can do whatever the hell it
Exactly.
wants.
Right.
That's right.
And so, but that's, nobody really understands that, and so they've been turned into a super legislature. Anyway, so we were sitting someplace with free Wi-Fi last night, and I'm looking through the Constitution for something else, and I came across, is it Article 12 or 12A maybe, that actually just says that. It says no resident of New Hampshire shall have to obey any law that isn't passed by its representative body.
It's already
Okay, are you my representative body? No, you're not. So, you know, I would love to see that raised.
And you know, this whole thing, I mean, I've written about it for a long time. The administrative state. It is the end point of progressivism, which is nothing more than incremental socialism, slow socialism. And as I said earlier in the show today, that Dr. Vieira at the NHCCS event last Sunday spoke at length about it, about the administrative state and the beginning of tyranny. The administrative law at the federal level of 1946 has now finally made it to the presidential campaign level. We've asked several of the candidates that same thing. What would you do? Because I think you've hit upon something really important. Because we see the executive branch morphing to the administrative branch, and they are making all kinds of rules. You know,
Yep.
and you look at them and go, "Is this a law without representation?" And even though it was duly passed and signed, I've wondered the last year or so, is it actually constitutional? You could be setting constitutional precedents in this, because if it's the State Board of Education that is saying what this is, trying to misuse a RSA, but in a sense it really is the board that's saying you can't do this. You could use that as an argument to say, hey, we are a distinct legal entity. We don't have to listen to you. Wouldn't that be novel?
Right, they are in fact, the school board is in fact an elected representative body, and the Board of Education is not.
Correct.
The Department of Education is not. And so there's all kinds of fun to be had with this case, right?
If you so desire to have
Which is why they have Chuck Douglas arguing instead of me, right? And my first statement to the court would be, so you, the judge, and you, the prosecutor, you're all paid by the same people, right? So is that not a conflict of interest? How am I supposed to expect justice here? Right? If I went to General Motors and General Motors ran a court that judged whether they'd been negligent, it would be ludicrous.
It'd be
right?
like the
And
NFL.
Right. Let's have the NFL be its own. Yeah, well, you didn't like our decision, we'll just act as the arbiter.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Right. So it's ludicrous, just on the face, to say we're going to ask one part of the state to rule on the limits of power on another part of the state, which is it's not even within light years of what you would call justice.
But this is where it does become very important, because you look at on the federal level, the IRS tax courts. You look at the EPA and the administrative judge, and we can probably go through entity after entity where
all the
they
way
are
down
both
to police departments investigating themselves.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right.
you think that we,
like the Department of Justice.
We'll look into that and we'll let you know,
Yeah.
right? The FBI with investigating 7,000 shootings over 20 years, not one mistake.
Yeah. But you look at it when the EPA
Man,
says
that's training.
Our rules say that you can't do this, and you can't take it to the regular court. You have to come to our court, and by the way, it's our administrative judge
Right.
and our administrative prosecutor, and you can't bring this kind of evidence into our court. You kind of got to go, really? And it comes back full circle to what we started off with, which is people listen just because somebody in the state says it is.
Right.
It's like, who made you so powerful and who made you so brilliant? Just because
Are you
the
king?
governor
Yeah.
is signing the front of your paycheck or the treasurer.
But
Really.
this is why I'm so hot to have people look at process instead of content, because everybody who sees the tax evader, he's stealing taxes from little children, they're not seeing the issue, the underlying structural issue, which is you cannot be judge and prosecutor in your own case. Without saying what am I talking about there? Am I talking about drugs? Am I talking about schools? Am I talking about terrorism? Am I talking about I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about everything, right? That's a procedural thing.
Right. And so
And the thing about procedural things is you fix the problem all at once, which is the only way that a problem like that can be fixed, I think.
Right, and so really, if you look at our case in Croydon, maybe we shouldn't even recognize the court as being able to judge this.
Right, and this is a discussion we've been having. On the one hand, you want to go in and get the judge to say, yes, you're doing the right thing, and then you go, yeah, great, that's cool. On the other hand, by just showing up, you're saying, you, Mr. Judge, have the power to make this decision, when in fact you don't, right? And so I actually wrote something for you guys about this subject, where just, getting people go in and they get court victories, and then they want to hold on to the legitimacy of the court because they don't want to lose their little decision, whether that's about, private schools or about abortion or about anything else. So just like, I have to believe in the court or this thing goes away.
Well, you bring up probably one of the best things that we can talk about, which is it is about process. How does it go? And can everybody see each step in the government process? Because when the process is known, when it is open, there are no dark corners in which to hide. That is the essence of open and transparent and just. That word from the left that they like to throw around. A just government. That you can't do these crony, let's make it up out of sheer stuff by quoting the wrong RSA and continue with it.
Well, actually there was I think the discussion that, Jody, you had with Chuck Douglas, where he said, it's all theory until you get to court and then it's about people. And my reaction is like, that's completely backwards. The whole point of the court should be to decide the theory without knowing who's involved. That's why justice is blind, right?
Correct.
I don't know is this a small district? Is it, a murderer? Is it somebody who...
And it shouldn't matter, right?
It shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
The whole point of the courts is to say, this is the theory, and you're either inside the theory or outside the theory. To suddenly say, oh, well, I have to
Right.
take into account this and this and this.
Well, any jury case.
That's what juries are for, though.
Right.
That's not what the judges are for.
Okay,
and this
good.
isn't going to be a jury case.
Right.
The judge is an umpire,
Right.
right?
Should you make it a jury case?
I don't know.
You're-
We don't even know what
Remember,
this
you're
is
the
yet.
Underwood underdogs.
I think.
This is-
Jurors like underdogs.
This is just being
I just
carved on the
bring the
carpet.
puppets so they can go.
Well,
Look at me, I'm so pretty.
Right.
We actually have a really good poster child in Croydon. There was a kid who was not performing well in Newport schools. I mean, to the point of, in hindsight, depression. We're talking 4th and 5th grade. She just was not performing. And her parents couldn't afford to send her to private school on top of their property taxes. And when school choice came in, they sent her to Montessori. And oh my God, suddenly she's thriving there, just thriving. And they couldn't have done it without this thing. Anyway, that's our poster child. We'll tell them that story. And I mean, Chuck Douglas asked us for all the stories, like how did all the kids get there? Why did they choose Montessori? So I don't know.
And he's the expert at that
He
game.
is.
He's been playing it his whole life, and there's nobody you'd want to have better if that's the game you want to play. The discussion we always have is, I'm always like, do you even want to play that game? Right, which is a much riskier stance to take, and it's why she's on the school board and I'm not. Because if I were on the school board, I would be saying, citing your own letter here, AG, you're saying you can't guarantee an education, you can only guarantee an opportunity for an education. And there's another RSA which actually says, almost unbelievably, the state determines that the cost of an adequate education is like $3,500.
Period.
And it's like, if I'm on the school board, I'm like, I'm going to spend $3,500 on you. Here's a computer. Here's a fast internet connection. You now have the opportunity to become educated. Nobody can stand in your way. We're done. Next. We'll meet again next year,
Right.
That's it. We're done. So that I make her look like, a moderate.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, that might be good. That might be good.
No,
Work to your advantage.
So extreme that a member of the Free State Project board looks moderate. That's a great tagline for you, Ian.
Right. It's not even extreme. It's just literal. Look,
is.
you wrote the laws. I didn't write the laws. You're the one who said an education costs $3,500. Why are we spending $15,000?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
going back to the process, how good can the process be when the Board of Education can't even quote the right RSA?
Yeah.
Well, right, and that gets to the whole void. Yes, it's they either they can't read it, or they don't want to read it, or they just don't understand it. Which would be my second thing. Would be in any appellate court, if this ever went to an appellate court. If you had a decision that was like 2-5 or 3-4, my next comment would be, look, you guys have all been to law school, and you can't agree on what this law means. This law is void for vagueness. You have to throw it out. All these RSAs, because if you guys don't know what this means, how am I supposed to know what it means? How's a school board supposed to know it? How's anybody supposed to know what it means? And how can you hold somebody accountable for breaking a law that isn't even clear enough that you guys...
And this is where I throw
can
out my
say what it
obligatory, when I was an undergrad pre-med kind of person, taking microeconomics and spending a whole hour with an education major trying to teach her y equals mx plus b. I mean, it fits right into this story with the school board quoting the wrong RSA.
Wow.
Well, studies have shown that education majors, if they become teachers, are generally in the lower third of the SATs. Not as rigorous as, say, engineering
So if you
or
can't teach
STEMs.
no.
Right. But the AG presumably is a lawyer, has gone to law school, passed the boards,
The
or
bars.
the bar
The bar.
exam, right? And so, you have to sort of assume that...
Well, the lawyers, but we're talking about the Board of Education.
Right.
But
I mean...
education people.
and so, again, looking through the Constitution, just sort of being surprised every time I pick that document up, the New Hampshire Constitution, the part that says that the legislature can enact and constitute courts. And they say the purpose of that is for the courts, they can enable the courts, essentially allow the courts to take depositions, affirmations, do whatever they want to better find out the truth. Which is not what the AG is doing. She's not trying to find out what is the actual law. She's taking an advocacy position,
She
right?
is,
Of
yes.
course.
And again, there's a conflict of interest there. It's in her interest to have a big state, and so to let her say anything about this is, she should just have to recuse herself. This should be decided by somebody who doesn't have a dog in the race. So, I mean,
Next time, bring your dogs.
right.
Right. It's funny. We were accused. So three of the three school board members, two of us do not have kids in schools. One of us doesn't have kids, me. The other one homeschools his kids. And so we were accused of not being appropriate to be on the school board. We have an agenda that we want to do and blah, blah, blah. But if you look at that, really, it's the parent of the child in the schools who has the conflict of interest because they're making decisions based on what's best for their kid and not more in general, more objective.
Right. Yeah, you could imagine, you as a judge, you can only listen to cases where you're related to somebody.
Yeah, I had that on the budget committee.
You know?
You've got an agenda. I said, yeah, my single agenda is that the spending of our town should rise no faster than the average income of the citizen in town. You got a problem with that?
Right, and that's a good agenda. Of course, the FSP has an agenda. This couldn't possibly be only about Croydon. It's about bigger things, and it's like, wow.
Well, it could be like about any student who wants to learn something anywhere in the state of New Hampshire. Could
right?
be about that.
Is that
Yeah,
bad?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not doing it for the state of New Hampshire. I'm doing it for Croydon because we have an opportunity, and I care about Croydon. I hope the rest of the. I mean, I get calls from people around the state, from school board members, saying, "How did you do that?" And they want to know, and because the second somebody rules to say it's okay, other places are going to do it too.
Well, all you have to say is,
Exactly.
look, teachers, the taxpayers pay the salaries. All we're doing is putting the parents in charge. You hate parents? Turn it around.
Right, yes.
Because essentially what they're saying is
And we
that
have to learn to
no,
turn it around.
The state
Yeah.
has to be in charge, or the school boards have to be in charge, or the unions have to be in charge, or the teachers have to be in charge, and it's everything except the people who actually have the responsibility for the kids in the schools, which is the parents.
That's
So
it.
if you want to be unfortunately, we are reduced at times to be using the language of the left. Are you anti-parent?
Yeah.
And they exactly say that. Well, they don't know enough
Yeah.
about what's good for their,
Yeah.
and it's
And how can anybody else know
it's-
what's good for their kid? I
well,
mean,
the
it's
parents are
presumptuous.
being denigrated. It's
Yeah.
being taught in the schools. I have a close friend that's going through special ed. She is being taught, don't trust the parents.
Wow. Yeah, I believe
Those
that.
damn parents. If they just stopped having kids altogether, we wouldn't need teachers, would we?
We'd be Germany. Going back to the beginning of the program.
The irony there, of course, is that you're too dumb to make decisions for your own child, but apparently you're smart enough to make decisions about who should make decisions for your child.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Voting.
I mean,
Right,
if you're
yeah,
going to be
exactly.
disqualified from making medical, legal, and educational decisions, you shouldn't be allowed to vote because you're obviously,
Too
you
stupid.
should be a ward of the
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, but at that point they'll say, yes, maybe we should license you to be able to have kids in the first place.
Oh, that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right. But then the other question to look at is how we fund schools. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it shouldn't be done the way it's being done. There's nothing in the Constitution that says it has to be done this way, right?
Nope.
Well, there's actually stuff that suggests that it can't, right?
Exactly.
The whole, where's the two mentions of education in the New Hampshire Constitution? One is
Charity.
lottery money will go to it,
Yeah.
and two, that the legislature shall always cherish
Seminary and public schools. And then you
So,
can't raise
right.
money for religious schools.
Right.
Seminary?
Seminaries, yeah. So, cherish.
So
who
cherish
knows
could
what cherish
possibly
means?
mean-
Cherish means
It can't mean you fund them. It can't mean you regulate them. It can't mean you run them.
We love you.
So whatever else, you can send them flowers. Right? That's what it
right.
means.
We're going to have a day for that. We are done. We have run out of time. Thank you so much
and
for
we've
coming
had
in.
a good time.
And we appreciate you coming in and helping us have a show.
Even though we were late.
Oh, that's okay. All right, this is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and, of course, Ian and Jody Underwood. Thank you so much. Have a great day. We'll be back next week. Goodbye.
Grok TV.